A special thank you to each of our subscribers who make this channel possible. Here's today's story. In a significant address delivered in Toronto, Prime Minister Mark Carney made headlines by declaring that the era of U.S. dominance on the global stage is over. Carney's government has committed to meeting NATO's defense spending benchmark of 2% of Canada's gross domestic product, GDP, by the end of the current fiscal year in March. This announcement signals a pivotal shift in Canada's defense strategy, moving away from reliance on the United States and towards strengthening ties with European allies. We stood shoulder to shoulder with the Americans throughout the Cold War and in the decades that followed, as the United States played a dominant role on the world stage. Today, that dominance is a thing of the past, Carney stated, addressing an audience of foreign policy experts, national security officials, and defense industry leaders. The Prime Minister emphasized that the world is at a critical turning point, referring to it as a hinge moment for Canada. He stressed the need for Canada to forge its own path in defense and security matters, stating, "It's about defending Canada." Carney's remarks come in the context of rising global tensions and geopolitical shifts, where new powers are emerging and the international order is being redefined. Carney pointed out that the U.S. is increasingly monetizing its hegemony, charging for access to its markets while reducing its contributions to collective security. This shift, he argued, necessitates a re-evaluation of Canada's defense posture and spending. The world's trade routes, allegiances, energy systems, and even intelligence itself are being rewired. Rising great powers are now in strategic competition with America. A new imperialism threatens, he warned. In line with his commitment to rearm the Canadian military, Carney reiterated pledges made during his election campaign. He announced plans to invest in new submarines, armored vehicles, drones, and other advanced technologies. While specifics on equipment purchases were limited, the Prime Minister revealed that a substantial portion of the new $9.3 billion in defense spending would focus on recruitment, pay raises for current soldiers, and laying the groundwork for future acquisitions. There has been speculation about a potential reorganization of the Canadian Coast Guard, which currently operates under the Fisheries Department. However, senior defense officials have confirmed that the Coast Guard will remain independent and unarmed, although a fundamental reorganization is expected. Opposition parties have raised concerns about the impact of increased defense spending on the federal budget. Carney reassured Canadians that taxes would not be raised to fund this initiative, but acknowledged that cuts would be necessary in other areas of government spending. This has led to questions about the government's ability to effectively allocate and utilize the additional funding, with defense expert Dave Perry highlighting past challenges in military spending. In the lead-up to his announcement, federal ministers had been signaling a commitment to meet NATO's 2% target, which was originally agreed upon in 2014. The former head of NATO, George Robertson, had previously indicated that Industry Minister Melanie Joly assured him Canada would meet the target by the end of this year. Defense Minister David McGuinty also hinted at Carney's forthcoming address on defense spending during a recent NATO meeting in Brussels. Achieving the 2% target will require an investment of between $18 billion and $20 billion. Carney stated that Canada would sign on to NATO's Defense Industrial Pledge, which aims to bolster the capacity of individual member states' defense industries. Our goal is tangible commitments from our allies to provide NATO with the necessary resolve to deter aggression and protect against all adversaries in all domains, he explained. Our goal is to protect Canadians, not to satisfy NATO accountants. Historically, Canada has faced criticism from allies for not meeting NATO's defense spending target. This issue became particularly pronounced during last year's Leaders' Summit in Washington, where U.S. lawmakers called out Canada for lacking a concrete plan to meet its commitments. Carney's announcement comes at a time when NATO allies are preparing to increase their defense spending commitments, with some leaders endorsing calls for a 5% target. As Canada prepares to host the G7 summit in Alberta, the Prime Minister's pledge to diversify defense procurement and enhance relations with the European Union marks a significant departure from Canada's long-standing reliance on U.S. defense capabilities. As Carney noted, Canada's military infrastructure and equipment have suffered from neglect, with only one of the country's 4 submarines currently seaworthy and less than half of the maritime fleet and land vehicles operational. The Prime Minister's commitment to modernizing Canada's military capabilities is seen as a crucial step in ensuring national security in an increasingly complex global landscape. With the world facing a multitude of threats, Carney's vision for a more self-reliant and strategically aligned Canadian defense posture is poised to reshape the country's role in global security dynamics. As the government moves forward with its ambitious plans, the eyes of the international community will be watching closely to see how Canada navigates this new era of defense policy. That's all for this story. We upload videos every day covering many different subjects, so hit that subscribe button to stay informed. Thanks for watching.